In just 34 seconds, $2.3 million would destroy a career. Pam Bondi didn't expect the microphone to pick up her whispered panic. She didn't expect Patty Murray to smile. Cameras zoomed. The Senate chamber erupted in gasps. What did Bondi accuse Murray of that? Only revealed her own fabricated evidence. At exactly 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning that would haunt Bondi forever, she walked into the Senate Judiciary hearing room like she already owned the verdict. Her leather binder bulged with what she called ironclad proof. The fluorescent lights caught the sweat already forming on her forehead. Though she hadn't even spoken yet, Patty Murray sat across the mahogany table like a predator who'd already spotted weakness. Bondi's hands trembled as she adjusted the microphone clipped crookedly to her navy blazer. 3 cameras followed her every movement. CNN's live feed captured her nervous glance toward the exit. Behind her, reporters whispered and shuffled papers. The weight of her accusations hung in the recycled air. "Senator Murray," Bondi began, her voice carrying false confidence that would crumble in minutes. "These documents prove you funneled $2.3 million through Pacific Northwest PACs to cover illegal campaign contributions." She slammed the binder open. Papers scattered across the polished table. Her flag pin caught the harsh lighting as she leaned forward aggressively. Murray's eyebrows raised in what might have been amusement. She touched her pearl necklace once, a gesture cameras would replay endlessly on social media within hours. "Ms. Bondi," she said, with the calm of someone holding a royal flush, "I'm curious about your sources." The first crack appeared in Bondi's armor. Her jaw clenched. She hadn't expected Murray to question the documents themselves. "These are official bank transfer records," Bondi stammered, pointing at papers that suddenly looked less authoritative under scrutiny. "Dated March 15th, clearly showing—" "Actually," Murray interrupted, her voice cutting through Bondi's explanation like ice, "let me show the committee something interesting." She reached into her own briefcase with theatrical precision. The chamber fell silent, except for the mechanical whir of C-SPAN cameras adjusting focus. 28 seconds had passed since Bondi's opening accusation. 6 seconds remained before her world collapsed. Murray pulled out a manila folder, thick with genuine documentation. "These are the actual bank records from Pacific Northwest Federal Credit Union," she announced, holding up sheets that gleamed under the fluorescent lights. "Notice the watermarks, the official seals, the sequential transaction numbers that your copies somehow lack?" 34 seconds. Bondi's face drained of color as Murray continued dismantling her case with surgical precision. "Your documents, Miss Bondi, appear to be poorly forged photocopies. The fonts don't match federal banking standards. The dates you've cited correspond to weekends when the banks were closed. Most tellingly, the account numbers you've referenced belong to a charity for homeless veterans, not political action committees." The irony was devastating. Bondi had accused Murray of stealing from veterans while using a veteran's charity account number in her fake documents. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Even Fox News anchors would later admit they'd never seen such a spectacular collapse of credibility broadcast live. Bondi's papers scattered further as her hands shook uncontrollably. The microphone picked up her whispered, "Oh God," that Twitter would turn into a meme within the hour. Committee Chairman Thompson leaned forward, his expression shifting from professional interest to barely contained disbelief. "Ms. Bondi, these are serious allegations you've brought to Congress. If your evidence is fabricated, we need to understand how this happened." Bondi's voice quivered as she attempted damage control. "There must be some mistake with the copying process. The originals clearly show," but her words dissolved into stammering as Murray produced the devastating evidence that would end Bondi's credibility forever. "I have here," Murray said, her voice carrying across the chamber with devastating clarity, a signed affidavit from the graphic design company that Ms. Bondi hired to create these fake documents. They kept copies of everything, including her email requesting official-looking bank statements for what she claimed was a movie production. The chamber erupted. Reporters' keyboards clattered as they typed frantically. Camera flashes strobed like lightning. Bondi slumped in her chair, her leather binder now a monument to her spectacular miscalculation. But Murray wasn't finished. She pulled out her phone and placed it near the committee microphone. I also have the recorded phone call where Ms. Bondi specifically requested documents that would make Murray look guilty of financial misconduct, even though, in her words, we don't have real evidence. Bondi's own voice filled the chamber through the speaker system. Make it look official. I need bank transfers, fake account numbers, whatever it takes to nail Murray. She's been blocking our legislation for months, and this is our chance to destroy her credibility. The silence that followed was deafening. Then came the sarcastic applause from the gallery that CNN would replay for hours. MSNBC immediately switched to full coverage. TikTok users began creating mashups of Bondi's collapse within minutes. Senator Collins covered her face with her hands. Senator Graham shook his head in visible disgust. Even Republican committee members distanced themselves physically, their chairs scraping against the marble floor as they literally moved away from Bondi. The committee room had transformed into a theater of humiliation. C-SPAN's cameras captured every angle of Bondi's disintegration. Her once confident posture had crumbled into a hunched figure clutching worthless papers. Sweat beaded on her upper lip as she realized the magnitude of her miscalculation. The leather portfolio that had seemed so authoritative now looked like a prop from a failed magic trick. Murray continued her methodical destruction with the precision of a surgeon. Committee members, I'd like to present this. She produced a thick manila envelope sealed with official tape. These are authenticated communications between Bondi and a known document forger who operates out of Tampa. The FBI provided these this morning after completing their preliminary investigation. The blood drained from Bondi's face entirely. Her hands began to shake so violently that papers fluttered to the floor like dying leaves. The microphone picked up her labored breathing, amplifying her panic for the world to hear. Behind her, reporters scribbled frantically, their pens scratching against notepads in a symphony of journalistic feeding frenzy. The forger, Murray continued with devastating calm, kept detailed records of Miss Bondi's requests. She specifically asked for documents that would, quote, destroy that liberal witch Murray once and for all. These are her exact words, recorded during a wiretapped conversation. Senator Warren leaned forward, her expression shifting from shock to righteous anger. Ms. Bondi, are you telling this committee that you knowingly brought fabricated evidence to accuse a sitting senator of federal crimes? Her voice carried the weight of institutional authority being violated. Bondi's response was barely audible. The documents were, someone told me they were authentic. Her voice cracked like ice under pressure. The excuse sounded pathetic even to her own ears. Cameras zoomed in on her trembling lower lip, capturing the moment a political career died in real time. But Murray wasn't finished with her systematic demolition. She reached into her briefcase one final time, producing what would become the smoking gun that ended not just Bondi's credibility, but potentially her freedom. I have here a check stub, signed by Ms. Bondi herself, paying $15,000 to Document Solutions, LLC, for what the memo line describes as Senate research materials. The check stub appeared on the overhead projector, blown up for everyone to see. Bondi's signature was unmistakable, her handwriting clear and damning. The date was from just 2 weeks ago. The amount was substantial enough to indicate serious premeditation, not a momentary lapse in judgment. Document Solutions, LLC. Murray explained to the now captivated committee, Is the front company operated by the same forger who created Miss Bondi's fabricated banking records? They specialize in creating fake government documents for con artists and political operatives willing to pay premium prices for premium deception. The committee room erupted again, but this time with a different energy. Where before there had been shock and disbelief, now there was anger and disgust. These weren't just lies or political theatrics. This was criminal conspiracy to defraud Congress itself. The institution itself was under attack, and every senator, regardless of party, felt the violation personally. Chairman Thompson's gavel echoed like a gunshot. Miss Bondi, this committee will be bearing this matter to the Department of Justice for investigation of perjury, fraud, and conspiracy charges. This hearing is adjourned. As Bondi gathered her fabricated documents with trembling hands, Murray delivered the final blow that would define Bondi's legacy. Standing with quiet dignity, she said, "Ms. Bondi, confidence without facts is the fastest path to public humiliation. I hope you've learned that lesson today." The aftermath was swift and merciless. Within 2 hours, Bondi Fails was trending on Twitter with over 50,000 posts. Late-night comedians already had material for weeks. Legal experts on cable news dissected how Bondi's desperate gambit had violated multiple federal laws. The immediate fallout was unprecedented in its scope and speed. CNN's Anderson Cooper opened his evening show with a 30-minute segment titled "The Spectacular Self-Destruction of Pam Bondi." MSNBC canceled regular programming to provide wall-to-wall coverage of what legal analysts were calling the most brazen attempt to defraud Congress in modern history. Senator McConnell released a statement within hours calling her behavior a disgrace to public service and an assault on democratic institutions. The Republican National Committee quietly removed all references to Bondi from their website, hoping to erase any association before permanent damage could spread to the broader party. Democratic operatives, meanwhile, could hardly believe their fortune. Opposition research teams had been preparing for months to counter whatever accusations Bondi might bring, but they never imagined she would self-destruct so spectacularly. Campaign managers across the country immediately began incorporating footage of Bondi's collapse into attack ads against any Republican candidate who had ever endorsed her methods. The legal community reacted with a mixture of professional horror and morbid fascination. Harvard law professor Lawrence Tribe tweeted that Bondi's actions represented the most clear-cut case of conspiracy to commit fraud against Congress he had witnessed in 50 years of legal practice. Former prosecutors lined up on cable news to explain exactly which federal statutes Bondi had violated and the likely prison sentences she faced. Within the Senate itself, the institutional damage was severe. Chairman Thompson announced that the Judiciary Committee would suspend all business to conduct a full investigation into how such fabricated evidence had reached their chamber. Security protocols would be reviewed and strengthened. The very processes that govern how evidence is presented to Congress would be fundamentally examined and reformed. That evening, as news anchors across every major network replayed the 34-second collapse, Bondi sat alone in her hotel room, watching her career evaporate in real time. Room service trays sat untouched as she obsessively refreshed news websites, each headline worse than the last. Her phone buzzed constantly with calls from reporters, former colleagues, distancing themselves, and lawyers offering their services for the criminal defense she would desperately need. The woman who had walked into that hearing room believing she could destroy Patty Murray had instead destroyed herself with elaborate deception. But the destruction extended far beyond her personal downfall. She had damaged the credibility of everyone who had supported her, undermined faith in the political process itself, and handed Democrats a gift that would keep giving through multiple Melbet cycles. The graphic design company released a statement distancing themselves from her fraud. The phone call recording was verified as authentic by 3 independent forensic audio laboratories. Federal prosecutors announced they were opening a criminal investigation. Murray, meanwhile, held a press conference surrounded by genuine documents, real bank statements, and verified financial records that proved her complete innocence. She spoke with the quiet satisfaction of someone who had been vindicated by the truth rather than demolished by lies. What happens when someone overestimates their ability to deceive Congress on live television? Bondi's spectacular failure became a case study in political self-destruction. If confidence is built on fabricated evidence, is power ever deserved? The hearing room that day witnessed more than just one woman's downfall. It revealed how quickly lies unravel when exposed to the harsh light of truth and scrutiny. 3 months later, Bondi would plead guilty to federal fraud charges. The graphic designer testified against her in exchange for immunity. The recorded phone call became evidence in her criminal trial. Her law license was suspended permanently. Murray continued serving with distinction, her reputation not merely intact, but enhanced by her grace under false attack. The $2.3 million fraud that Bondi had fabricated became the actual cost of her legal defense and eventual fines. This dramatized story is inspired by real events and public figures. All dialogue and incidents are fictionalized for commentary and educational purposes. No defamation intended, only illustration of how fabricated evidence inevitably collapses under scrutiny and destroys those who wield it. Even conservative outlets, like Fox News, struggled to defend the indefensible, with several anchors openly questioning Bondi's mental state. Social media exploded with forensic analysis of every frame from the hearing. Twitter users dissected the exact moment Bondi's face changed color. Instagram accounts dedicated to political fails gained hundreds of thousands of followers overnight. TikTok creators turned the audio of Bondi's whispered, "Oh God," into a viral sound effect used in videos about epic failures across every conceivable topic. The political ramifications rippled outward like shock waves from an earthquake. Republican leadership scrambled to distance themselves from Bondi's actions. If this story entertained or taught you a lesson about the importance of truth in politics, like, share, subscribe. What's the boldest mistake you've witnessed in politics? Let me know in the comments below.